All right. Hey, everyone. I am Kyle Watts. I'm working with DocLib here to talk about the switch from QAD to NetSuite as an ERP system and how DocLib can integrate with those. I'm joined today by David England, who is one of our customers who did just that. And so we just wanted to share his experience, what their company went through as they did this big ERP switch. One thing that we do want to highlight is that ERP switches are fairly common. On average, it's every 5 to 10 years a company will do an ERP switch. So we do want to know that, or we do want to highlight that there can be switches that happen within these companies. It obviously varies depending on industry, but that DocLib is there, and we're going to be integrating into NetSuite now as well, and not just QAD. And so I just wanted to open the floor to David. If you could just share your background, whether it be in ERP systems or even just your career background as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Pleasure being here. I've been in IT and leading change within organizations since the 1980s. I really love helping teams kind of automate, work effectively, and share knowledge. And now, as the vice president of IT for Ezurio, I have the pleasure of working closely with all of our executive team and subject matter experts across the business to do just that, to make sure that we're operating effectively and efficiently, and that our information technology positions us for growth, because we're private equity owned. And so while I hope we don't do another ERP move in the next 5 to 10 years, I suspect that we will have some integrations. So we will be bringing new lines of business into our ERP platform as we go forward.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more integrations, especially with the rapid changes that we're seeing in technology and all of that. And I'm sure within the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be some adaptations here and there within the ERP systems, and even new players in the game, right?
Yep, for sure.
So yeah, we're excited to hear about your guys' Switch and ERP systems, and then also how DocLib was integral within that, as far as the accounts payable piece of it. So I'm just curious, as you guys were considering this ERP change, if there were any challenges that your accounts payable team faced initially, and then also did DocLib help you solve those?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been using DocLib since I joined our company in 2016, and we were concerned when we were planning our ERP change that we would lose all of our history. So all of the invoices that we had paid, and just kind of the fact that within DocLib they're stored as PDF documents with fully searchable metadata for historical reporting for audit purposes. And so we didn't want to lose that. So as we were thinking about the initial move to NetSuite, we obviously start looking at native NetSuite functionality wherever we can, rather than using a lot of different systems. But at the time, and I think still today, the AP automation capabilities in NetSuite don't support our kind of global footprint in terms of multi-country, multi-currency, multi-subsidiary use. And so the way we were using DocLib for QAD was a much better fit for our business processes and our scale than the way AP automation was done natively in NetSuite. And we also kind of did a quick survey of the market. And while there are other AP automation tools out there, as we talked with the Stephen and Justin of the team at DocLib, it became fairly obvious that it might be a good thing for both of us if we explore integrating DocLib with NetSuite, both to keep our accounts payable processes the same and reduce the change on our accounts payable team, but also to maintain all the history that we had built up over the years of operating in QAD.
Yeah, totally makes sense. You don't want to have to go through and especially manually enter, every piece of information from the past few years of your guys' business too. That's that would be an absolute huge lift.
For sure.
So as far as that, like you were talking about some of the features within QAD that DocLib did well for you guys, would you just be able to kind of highlight a few of those things that you mentioned? I know you, for one, was receipts was one of those things, but what else are some features you liked?
Yep. So within QAD, we were on a really old version of QAD. So this is no reflection on that platform, because they've advanced by leaps and bounds since 2008 when it was first implemented. But we had multiple QAD databases and tens of them for our global operations within our larger company before we became Ezurio. And DocLib was the only way for us to have kind of a consolidated AP function where all of our AP shared service centers and local AP contacts globally were using kind of the same tool and the same process to do accounts payable. And so it was critical for us to, regardless of which country you were operating in and which QAD database you were operating in, that AP be done the same way and that all the history be available in a central location. So DocLib was key to us operating in QAD and having a efficient accounts payable process.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I guess my next question then, because I know an ERP change can be just a huge lift, especially for sizable companies. So what were some of the factors that led you guys to make that decision from switching from QAD to NetSuite?
So there were a number of factors. We were on a very old on-premise version of QAD, and so there were some business constraints that we had, some license constraints that we had, and so we wanted to get to, and also some risk management issues as well. So we wanted to get to a more modern platform, and so as we were kind of surveying the industry and relative to our new size as a much smaller organization, NetSuite really kind of checked all the boxes in terms of ease of use, ease of implementation, and cost effectiveness for us. Because while we do have some light manufacturing, we're primarily a distributor of what we manufacture in-house and through outsourced manufacturing, and NetSuite fits that distribution model really well.
Okay. Gotcha. And so with that, you already mentioned a little bit too about how you guys wanted to make sure you didn't have to redo, for one thing, your receipts, but then there's probably workflows as well associated with the DocLib workflow that you guys enjoy that you want to make sure you can continue on NetSuite, would be an assumption that I'm making here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of my assumption going in, is that our workflows would somehow just magically come over to NetSuite. The reality wasn't quite like that, but the end user experience is very similar. So we didn't have to change that very much. But Justin and Marcus and the team at DocLib created basically a new NetSuite workflow and a completely new integration, because the technology stacks in QAD, the version we had, and NetSuite are obviously very different. And so they took the opportunity to kind of rethink the integration pattern for NetSuite, and we started going down the road of basically re-implementing the functionality that we had with QAD in DocLib. But then as we iterated a couple of times, one thing that became apparent was that the concepts that QAD uses for receivers and vouchers didn't really translate to the way NetSuite uses item receipts and vendor bills and how they relate those to purchase orders. So we kind of did a reset again, and looking at the NetSuite data model, remodeled the entire kind of underlying workflow to make better use of that and be more NetSuite kind of centric or native. So it translated I guess it didn't translate well. I guess the DocLib team did a lot of work to kind of integrate with NetSuite, the NetSuite way, rather than trying to integrate with NetSuite the QAD way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So they were able to offer you a more bespoke option that fit exactly what your guys' needs were, coming from QAD to the NetSuite space, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think that for future customers that use NetSuite and can benefit from DocLib, that should be a much easier lift now that the basic plumbing is there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we appreciate you working with us, getting through that process and helping us build that out. I think that was, I hope you enjoyed that experience as well.
It was a good relationship and a good process. There there were lots of issues. I mean, there always are when you're doing those things, especially when you're all learning a new system at the same time. But it went well overall, so I'm happy with where we've ended up.
It's great. And then, so yeah, I think the next thing that I want to drill down into a little bit more is those differences between QAD and NetSuite. So I know you mentioned, for one thing, the way the invoices are processed are a little bit different. Were there
Mhm.
other things that you noticed that were big differences between the two systems? And it doesn't have to only be about AP, but just reasons that you chose to switch even outside of that are useful as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, there are lots of reasons why we chose to move to a more modern ERP platform. One of my goals was to get to something that someone else hosted. So preferably something that is managed and upgraded without us having to be involved, so that we're kind of forced to modernize on a regular cadence, and there's some governance in terms of what we can and can't customize to kind of keep us on the straight and narrow. Because one of the things that bit us is just over time with the version of QED we're on, it was highly customized for our business, and because it was on premise, that included being able to customize source code and kind of the internals of the ERP platform. And I didn't want to be able to go down that road again. I wanted a platform that kind of was designed for configuration and some customization through standard patterns like workflows and scripts, but not fundamentally changing the way the system operated. So that was one of the keys for NetSuite, was just architecturally, it's a good fit for our business model, because we don't have a large IT team and an ERP team that can do routine upgrades of the platform for us. We want that to be driven by Oracle and NetSuite, and then we do the regression testing based on what's changing every 6 months as they do a new release. So that was kind of the key there. And I'll pause there because I might have lost track of your question.
No, that's all really helpful. Because I'm more so from my background. I did a lot of like web design stuff like that, so I completely get that type of concept where over the ability to customize too much can also cause problems as much as it can be a solution.
Yeah,
Where you also have platforms like a Squarespace, right, that will give you a very templated look, but you can't really break it, right? So I can totally see what you're saying there, from my
exactly.
personal experience, just in a different thing, not ERPs, but more so platforms for hosting websites. So I get that from my side of things. So yeah, I guess the next thing that I would want to ask about would just be, after doing a transition like this from QAD to NetSuite, is there anything that you would recommend to other businesses that are considering an ERP change, or things or decisions that you weighed before making that step, that they should also be thinking through those similar things?
Yeah, I mean, I guess obviously it's a very different journey for different types and sizes of companies, but I guess the primary bit of advice would just be to think carefully about everything that you want to accomplish with your ERP change, and what your business growth strategy will kind of bring to you over the next few years, right? Because you're building a platform to support hopefully not only your current business, but also your growing business, whether that's through organically developing new products or integrating other companies that are purchased. And so you want to make sure that as you do your initial change, you don't um, you don't inadvertently block your ability to execute future change, right? And so if we had just been a small US based company that only transacted in US dollars for US customers, the NetSuite AP automation may have been a great fit for what we were doing, but not necessarily for what we wanted to be doing. If, for example, then we bought a company in Europe or Asia Pacific region, and now we're transacting in euros, and another subsidiary, and all of a sudden now we're forced to make a change from out of the box functionality to a partner after the fact, after we've already made that initial investment. So thinking not only about, okay, so what does this mean for me today in terms of what I'm changing from and to, but what might the future hold for us as a company is kind of critical too.
Yeah, that's great. And then I guess just to wrap up here, if you were to summarize the experience with DocLib through this transition in a sentence or maybe two, how would you summarize your experience with this integration of DocLib to NetSuite now that it's fully up and running for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. I think starting out, I mean, DocLib had a lot of other things going on, and they kind of took this on top of everything else they were working on with their other customers doing go lives, and they worked with us through our design process, and we worked very well together, in my opinion, to integrate DocLib with NetSuite and to address the challenges and opportunities along the way. I mentioned briefly that we kind of rebooted at one point the way we were thinking about it, because we were kind of taking it from both of our perspectives, the QAD centric view of the accounts payable process. But as we both started to understand the NetSuite way of doing things, it became obvious that there's a better way to kind of express purchase orders and item receipts and vendor bills in data, specifically for NetSuite, that DocLib does really well given its underlying architecture. And I feel confident today that if I was still running QAD for a business unit and had NetSuite for a business unit, I could use DocLib to manage AP for both sets of those organizations. But thank goodness we're not doing that. But yeah. That wasn't a sentence, I know, but so.
No, that's great. No, I love that answer. And yeah, I would just say, do you have any final thoughts other than that before we end up this, or we tie up this conversation?
I guess just for companies that are looking to make a major change like this, I think the more you think critically about what you want to accomplish and then what your future may hold, when you're doing your product selection and your initial design, and the more you understand, I guess the one thing I wish I had done differently was I wish I'd understand the accounts payable process in NetSuite sooner than I did, because I think that could have helped us kind of avoid some of the rework early in the process. So the more you can shift that stuff kind of left in the development cycle, the better. But
Great.
yeah.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate your time. And if any other businesses are considering planning or considering changing ERP systems from QAD to NetSuite, we hope that you'll consider DocLib as your AP automation or your AP automation solution.
Exactly.
There we go. Well, thank you, David. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.